you. Okay, pei hamid beis on the bottom. Last line. Ein mevi'in lo mi beis has valim, or you can't bring the anpankton oil for a mincha. V'atanya ein mevi'in anpankton. So you can't bring the anpankton oil for a mincha. And the Gemara says on pei vav amud aleph. Sorry, v'im hevi pasol. If you bring it, it's pasol. Mimnei shehu sraf. So it agrees with the law that you can't bring this type of oil as a mincha. But the difference is, what's the problem here? It says that it's a sraf, it's a secretion, it's not even an oil. So is it an oil or is it not an oil? Amar Rav Yosef lo kasha, ha Rabbi Chia, ha Rabbi Shimon bar Rebbe. It's a machlokes. Rabbi Chia says that this is not even an oil, it's like a secretion. And Rabbi Shimon bar Rebbe says, no, this is actually an oil. To Rabbi Chia zarik le, because we see that Rabbi Chia threw it out. For Rabbi Shimon bar Rebbe matbele. Rabbi Shimon bar Rebbe went ahead and toveled in it. He would go ahead and he would wash his feet in it, etc. He would use it as an oil. V'simanecha, if you want to remember which one used it as an oil and which one looked at it as it was sraf, as it was a secretion, ashirin mekamsin. Rabbi Shimon, who wasn't Asher, was mekamsin, he was frugal. What does that mean? There's two ways to look at it. Either you could say that rich people are frugal, or you could say, how do they become rich? By being frugal. So he was the frugal one, he was the careful one, and he used something that might have been borderline secretion, might have been borderline oil. He actually used it as oil. Says the two dots, Pei Vav Amud Aleph, Shisha Chadashim B'Shemen Hamor, that the 6 months they would prepare themselves for Achashverosh. My Shemen Hamor, Rav Huna bar Chia Amar, Sichita, balsam oil. They would put balsam oil all over their face and their body. Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba Amar Shemen Zayis Lo Hevi Shlish. They would go out and they would use Shemen Zayis, they would use olive oil that did not ripen even a third. Tanya, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Anpaknon. It's interesting, this says Anpaknon. The other one says Anpakdon. But it seems like it's the same thing. This Anpaknon, this oil is Shemen Zayis Lo Hevi Shlish. So lama sachana, so this seems to be going like Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba, Shemen Zayis, which didn't ripen even a third. That's what they would use, and that was the name of this oil on paknon. Why would they go ahead and anoint themselves in it? Shemashir es haseyar umadan es habasar. It would remove any hair that they had, and it would make your face glow. So if you want your face to glow, go home after the shear and put on some of this oil. Says the Gemara, Mazel Tov. Ein mevi'in min hagargarin shenishu b'mayim. You can't bring from olive oil for a mincha from olive berries that were soaked in water. Tani Rabbanan shemen zayis kavush shaluk sharoi. If it was pickled, baked, boiled, or soaked. V'shal shmarm, or if it was from the sediments. V'shal reach ra, if it has a bad smell. Lo yavi v'im hevi pasel. You can't bring it, and if you bring it, it's pasel. Boy rabba. So you can't bring the shemen zayis as a mincha. Let's say you do. So higdishu, let's say you set it aside as a mincha. Ma'ushi yilach ela mishum ba'amum. So now we know that if you bring a ba'amum as a korban, you get malchus. The question is, do we look at this shemen as being a balmum, and therefore kevan de pasol kebalmum dami? Since it's pasol, we're going to look at it like a balmum, and you're going to get malchus for bringing it on the mizbeach. Or dilma ein balmum ela bebehema. Maybe this halacha of getting malchus for a balmum is only when we're dealing with a behema. Says the Gemara, tishbi yitaretz kushos ubayos. Tegu. Zak the Mishnah. Shlosha zeisimheim. There are 3 harvest times for olives. Uvahen shlosha shmanim. And in each one, there are 3 grades. So that's a total of 9 grades of oil. The 3 grades of oil, and each time 3 harvests. That's 9 grades of oil. Hazayis harishon, so the first time that you have the harvest, migargiro birosh hazayis. You pick the crop from the top of the tree. And you'll see that the trees were actually, like if you look across the street, the trees that go above the roofs of the houses. So you pick it from the very top, where you see now the sun is shining. Those are the ones that ripen first. So you go ahead and you pick the ones that are ripened first. Says the Gemara, what do you do with them after you pick them? Kotesh v'nosein letoch hasal, Rabbi Yehuda omer svivot hasal. So when you pick them, you go ahead and you pound them with a mortar. That means, again, before you crush them, as we'll see, before you go ahead and you crush them, you just pound them with a mortar. So it starts to get the juices flowing. And you do that, and then you put it inside of a sal, inside of a basket, which seemingly had holes on the bottom, and the oil would drip through the holes, and that would be first grade oil. Rabbi Yehuda omer, svivos hasal. Rabbi Yehuda says svivos hasal, and Rashi on the bottom says that according to the Tanakama, I'm using Rashi Ksivas Yad. If you look at the 5th line in Rashi, Rabbi Yehuda omer svivos, dofne hasal, nodno mitoch of Hashem and zav derech hadefanis v'nofel l'shulei hasal misham mistanen v'yotzev v'nimsa Hashem mizokek shapsos v'aptokim nidvakim b'dofne hasal. Says that if you stick it to the sides of the basket, then what happens? Then all of the psola stays on the sides, all of the sediment and everything stays on the side, and the oil goes by itself. Again, so you're pounding the olives, you're not crushing them, you're pounding them. Then you're either, according to Tanakama, putting them on the bottom of a bowl. According to Rabbi Yehuda, that's not geschmack, because some of the sediments will get mixed in with the oil. It either won't let the oil flow out, or maybe it'll even get through the holes. If you press it against the sides of the bowl, Now all of a sudden you have all the sediment staying on the side of the bowl and it goes down. Either way, you're pounding it with a mortar first, then you're putting it either to the inside of the bowl or the sides of the bowl, but it's going to be the same. Again, we're looking for the grade number 1, grade A oil. That's the first thing. What do you do after that? Chaza v'toin b'korah. Then while it's still in the bowl, whether it's on the side of the bowl or it's on the bottom of the bowl, you press it with some type of beam. Seemingly it was probably an Evan beam. You press it with a beam. You still haven't crushed it. You press it with a beam. You pull out more oil. Rabbi Yehuda Omer ba'avanim. You can't even use a beam. You have to use little stones. Zeh sheni. That's grade B. That's how you say grade A, grade B, right? Then the third thing you do is chazer v'tachan v'tan. Then you grind it finally in a millstone, and then you press it again, and that's zeh shlishi. That's the third. So again, you pound it with a mortar. Then you go ahead and you press it on the sides, let's say, or on the That's number 1. You just put it on the sides or on the bottom. Then you press it with a beam, and then you grind it in the millstones, and you press it again. That's shlishi. Harishon lemenorah. The grade A is for the menorah. V'ashar lemenachos. Obviously, grade A could be used for menachos as too, but grade A is for only for menorah. You have to use grade A for menorah. For menachos, you could use grade A, B, C. Hasheni. The second harvest is what? Megargero b'rosh hagag. You go ahead and now you go to the ones b'rosh hagag. So if you look over there, you see that the tree across the street, the top is above the gag. That's the first harvest. The ones that are equal to the gag, which is lower down on the tree, that's going to be the second harvest. Then you do the same thing. V'chodesh v'noten l'toch hasal, Yehuda mer svivot hasal, zeh rishon, toin bekorah, Yehuda mer ba'avanim zeh sheni, chazer v'tachan v'tan zeh shlishi, harishon l'menorah v'ashar l'menachos. What's interesting is that even according to this, the second harvest, the first grade A, the first part of the second harvest can also be used for the menorah. So the first part, as we'll see, of all 3 harvests, even though the harvests are not as good as the one before, the first grade A of any 3 of the harvests can be used for the menorah. Grade A, B, or C of any of them, that means any 9 of the qualities, can be used for the mincha. Shlishi, the third harvest, is otno beveis abad. So now already you're not at the top of the tree, you're not at the gag level, you're on the bottom level. Those are not even ripe. Even when you wait, they're not even so ripe. So what do? You harvest them, they're not so geschmack. So what do you have to do with them? It's amazing that they knew how to do this. But what did they do? That they figured out. You pack them beveis abad in a vat, achiyalak till they spoil. Umalehu uminagvo b'rosh hagag. Then you go ahead and you put them on your roof and you dry them. Then if you're kotesh v'noten l'toch hasal, after they've spoiled, after they've been on your gag and they've dried, then if you pound them with the mortar, it's going to give you grade A oil. Very interesting. Again, seemingly the grade A oil of the third harvest is not going to be as geschmack as the grade A oil of the second harvest, and definitely not as the first harvest. Nevertheless, as we'll see, the grade A oil of each harvest can still be used for the menorah, even though it's not as geschmack as the one before it. Says the Gemara, "V'noten l'toch hasal Yehuda mer svivot hasal zeh rishon toin bekorah Rabbi Yehuda mer ba'avanim zeh sheni chazer v'tachan v'tan zeh shlishi harishon lemenorah v'ashar lemenachos." Like we said, Zak the Gemara, Ibaya lehu migargerotnan o megalgalotan. Do you pick it or do you allow it to ripen? And we'll see it's really a combination of the two. What we're looking for in this brisa is we're going to see that this brisa is similar to our Mishnah, but I'll just tell you right up in front. The difference between this brisa and our Mishnah is that in our Mishnah, again, there were 3 steps. You would go ahead for each of the 3 harvests, but there were really 3 steps. You would pound it with a mortar, then you would go ahead and press it while it was in the bowl, and then you would go ahead and crush it, and then press it again and get the 3rd grade. That was the 3. Again, the 3rd harvest was a little differently. You had to let it spoil before, and fine. According to this one, you're going to see the difference is that now you're going to go ahead and you're going to go ahead and you're going to crush it in the mill. You're going to crush it in the olive press at the very beginning. Then you're going to go through the whole process of putting it into the bowl, pressing it, and then grinding it again. That's going to be the difference in this brisa, and that's what we're going to read it. You're supposed to let it, at least the top ones, you're supposed to go until they're overflowing with oil. That's how geschmack they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be so ripe that they're overflowing with oil. Mikan amru zayis rishon megalgalo b'rosh hazayis. Again, the same thing we said. V'konsa, but here you say that it's megalgalo. We had megargaro, pick the crop. What we're saying is that first you have to let it ripen. So you let it ripen fully, then you pick it. The konsol beis habad. Now you see v'tochno b'rechaim. Now you're grinding it in the rechaim first. Beforehand, we hit it with the mortar first. Then v'notno b'salin. Then you put it into the salin. Shemen hayotze menu zeh hayirishon. The one that comes out just from being in the basket without hitting it with the mortar. You don't actually pound it with the mortar according to this one. You just grind it, then you put it into the basket. That's the first grade. Tan b'korah. Then you press it with the korah. That's similar. Shemen hayotze menu zeh hayasheni. V'chazer parach tachan v'tan zeh hayashlishi. Then you grind it again. Again, you grind it, and then that's a shlishi. So again, here the only difference is that instead of grinding it, crushing it, in the beginning, you're crushing it in the beginning here, and over there you weren't crushing it until the third step. Harishon lemenorah v'shar lemenachos v'chein zayit sheni, and then v'zayit shlishi ona bebeit tabarat shilaka, the same thing. Umal rosh hagav v'osato tmara. Here it just adds another detail. When you bring it on the roof to dry, you don't just bring it onto the roof, you pile it into like a heap, like dates, until the oil starts coming out. Rishon tan bekor shemen hayotzim min hazayah. Sheni parchaz v'tachon v'tan zehaya shlishi. Harishon lemenorah v'ashar lemenachos. It's the same thing. Here, instead of it arguing, Rabbi Yehuda arguing at every step along the way, Rabbi Yehuda comes at the end and says, I argue on three things. First of all, lo haya tochno berechaim ela kocho b'machtesha. What's that? That's our Mishnah. You don't actually go ahead and grind it in the beginning, crush it in the beginning. You hit it with the mortar in the beginning. And then on all of the levels, you go ahead and you never press it with a big korah. You press it with little avanim. Like we said, he says you don't put it on the bottom of the basket, you put it on the sides. Says the Gemara, Hagufa kasha. You have a problem. You brought this as a proof that you have to let it ripen and then you pick it. But you have a problem because kotesh money, who's the one that says that you have to go ahead and you have to pound it with a mortar? Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda Tochasal atan l'Rabbanan. Haitana savar la kavasi b'chado pala b'chado. What's the problem? We see from the second brisa that what? Rabbi Yehuda is the one. We know from the first brisa, Rabbi Yehuda is the one who says you put it around the basket. We know from the first brisa, Rabbi Yehuda is the one who says you push it with avanim. And we know from the first one that Rabbi Yehuda is the one who says that you go ahead and you, those are the two things that he says. But now we see from the second brisa that Rabbi Yehuda is the one who says you hit it with you hit the mortar. You hit it with the mortar in the beginning. You don't have that. So now in the first brisa, what the problem is, that what does it say in the first brisa? First brisa says you pound it with a mortar. Who's that? That's the Tanakama. And then what do you say? You say Svivos Asal. Rabbi Yehuda comes and argues and says Svivos Asal. So in the first Mishnah, in our Mishnah, on one hand you're paskening the Tanakama. Again, you're holding the Tanakama is Rabbi Yehuda. And then you're saying Rabbi Yehuda Omer this. How could it be? So the Gemara says that our Mishnah chose Rabbi Yehuda's opinion with certain things and didn't choose him with other things. It chose Rabbi Yehuda's opinion that what? It chose it that for the Tanakama, again, representing the Tanakama in our Mishnah. What does it say in our Mishnah? You kotesh it, you pound it with a mortar, but then it says you put it into the actual basket. How could that be? In the second verse we see who holds that you pound it with a mortar? Rabbi Yehuda. But in our Mishnah it says that Rabbi Yehuda is the one who says, well, you put it around the basket. Right. Therefore, our Mishnah chose Rabbi Yehuda. He holds like Rabbi Yehuda that what do? You first pound it with a mortar. He put that as the Tanakama. But then he also put as the Tanakama, not like Rabbi Yehuda, not that you put it around the basket, but you put it in the basket. But again, I think we get the steps. It basically comes out, if we go like our Mishnah, again, you have those three steps of each of the harvests being the same, but you have the three steps, except for the last one, where you have to let it, again, first spoil on the roof, but you have the three steps where you kotesh it, you pound it with a mortar, then the second step, and then you put it onto the sides, let's say, or into the basket. Second step is that you then hit it with a korah, you press it with a korah, and then the third step is that you finally crush it in the rechaim. Good? This is what?
Practical advice.
This is what they did. This is what you, no, this is telling you, this is what they did. Practical, telling you practically how they harvested olives and telling you which ones you can use. So you can use the grade A of any of those three harvests for the menorah. You can use any of those 9.
And you weigh differently, you use the oil on.
Right, well, that means you don't have oil for the menorah. Right, if you use grade B of any of them, you don't have oil for the menorah. Says the Mishnah, Harishon sheberishon ein lamala himenu. The first of the first is nothing higher. Hasheni sheberishon rishon shebesheni. So it's important to realize the Gemara is going to tell us, I have to leave in 10 minutes. The Gemara is going to tell us that, what's pshat? The Gemara is going to tell us, we just said that we need the grade A oil for all three of them. We need grade A for the menorah. So now it's going to tell us, so when it comes to the mincha, we said you could use any of the 9. But how do we grade them in terms of the 9? We said even for the mincha, you want to use the best oil possible. So how do I figure out the hierarchy of the 9? So it's going to tell you that really the second pressing of number 1 is equal to the first pressing of number 2. Again, not for the menorah. Menorah, even though as we're going to see, the first pressing of the third harvest is not as good as the second pressing of the first harvest, it doesn't matter. The first pressing of any of the harvest can be used for the menorah. But in terms of the mincha, if you want to now know which one should I use for the mincha when I go to the store, now we're going to give you the hierarchy. Very, very interesting. Says the Gemara, Harishon sheberishon ein lamala himenu. Obviously, the first pressing of the first harvest is the best. Hasheni sheberishon, the second pressing of the first harvest. V'harishon shebesheni shavin. And this first pressing of the second harvest are the same for the mincha. You could use either one of them, and they're both considered to be the second level. For the menorah, again, you have to use, even though they're equal, you can only use the first pressing of the second, not the second pressing of the first. Hashlishi sheberishon, the third pressing of the first harvest. Vasheni shebesheni, the second pressing of the second harvest. Varishon shebeshlishi shavin. They're equal. Those three are equal for the mincha, but again, only the rishon shebeshlishi, which again is interesting. Even though, as we're saying, the sheni sheberishon is on a higher level than the rishon shebeshlishi, the second pressing of the first harvest is on a higher level than the first pressing of the third harvest, you can still only use the first pressing of the third harvest for the menorah. Hashlishi shebesheni v'hasheni shebeshlishi shav. And again, if you think about it, it makes sense. The third pressing of the second harvest and the second pressing of the third harvest are on the same level. Hashlishi shebeshlishi ein lamate menu. Obviously, the third pressing of the third harvest is going to be the lowest. Because again, it makes sense in theory that if you go ahead and you're taking the best pressing of the second harvest, it's going to be equal to the second pressing of the best harvest. That's the pshat. You might have thought that all minchas need to have shemen zayisach, the first level, the grade A of each. Ma menorah she'ena, why? Because it's a kal v'chomer. Ma menorah she'ena la'achila tuna shemen zayisach, menachos she'en la'achila eno din she'itanu shemen zayisach. If the menorah is not being eaten, and it still needs the best oil, then the menachos, which are being eaten not by people, even though some of them are being eaten by people, which are being eaten by the mizbeach, you might think it needs grade A oil. Says Gemara Tamulomar, zemen shemen zayizach kasis, as we'll see, means pounded lama or. Only the grade A needs to be lama or. Only lama or needs grade A. Ve'ein zach kasis menachos. Again, if you can afford it, beautiful. But you only need grade A for the menorah. Grade B and C can be used for the mincha, but again, you should try to use grade A as much as possible. Says the Gemara, this is what I already told you. Shavin va'amar rishon lemenorah v'ashar menachos. How could you say that the first of number 3 and the second of number 2 are equal, etc., if you can only use one for the menorah? It says, Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, my shavin lemenachos. No, for the mincha. We gave you this list of hierarchy for the mincha. That if you want to do the best, you do this. If you want to do second best, you do either this or this. But for the menorah, you have no choice. You could either do best is, again, well, obviously, even within the menorah, you have 3 levels. You have grade A of the first harvest, grade A of the second harvest, grade A of the third harvest. But again, you can only use those, even if other ones seem to be better from the hierarchy of menachos. Avkala menachos hayubidin. Tana Rabbanan. Zach, ein zach elanaki. When it says you have to use pure oil, it means pure oil. Rabbi Yehuda Mer katid means ein katid ala katush, like he said before. When we talk about shemen zayizach, he holds it has to be pounded with a mortar. You cannot use oil that was made with the rechaim, that was crushed. You cannot use that for the menorah, because he holds that the first pounding, the first part, the first grade of any of the harvest is when you pound it with the mortar, you put it on the sides of the thing, and you let it drip down. That's what he says. Now the other extreme. So now you're telling me you don't need it for the menachos. Maybe you can use shemen zayizach for the menachos, because it says only kasis lama or. Says the Gemara, Tamulomar, no, it is a separate pasuk by menachos, v'saron solas balul b'shemen kasis, that it could be shemen kasis. Imkein matamulomar lama or. What does it tell me, dafka lama or? Elamipnei hachisachon. They wanted to be careful with our money. My chisachon, Amar Belazar, Torah chasa mamon Yisrael. As Rashi explains, of course you can use grade A oil for the mincha, but we don't require you to use grade A oil for the mincha. We require you to use grade A oil for the menorah because that's not so much money. That's public funds, and it's only half a lug per 7 of the ner. That's 3.5 lug per day. When you're dealing with a mincha, you could have hundreds of minchas a day. If we're going to require everyone to use grade A oil, it's going to get very expensive. Therefore, of course, by a menorah, you have to use grade A oil, for sure. You should use grade A of the first harvest. If you can't, use grade A of the second harvest. If you can't, use grade A of the third harvest. If not, you're stuck. That's for sure. When it comes to minchas, of course you should try to use grade A of the first one, and if not, grade A of the B, and if not, grade A of the C, or again, whichever ones are on the hierarchy. But we're not going to require you because it's going to be too expensive if we require and we care about the money of the Jewish people. Says Gemara, Tzavis b'nei Yisrael v'yichu elecha shemen zayizach, Amar Bel Shmuel bar Nachmeni, elecha v'lo li. The menorah and the shemen that you're lighting in it is for you and not for me. Lola ora ani tzarech. I don't need the light, says God. I want you to light it so that you show your love for me, and when you look at it, you remember the love you have for me. Shulchan b'tzafon u'menorah b'darim. What do we see here? We know that the Kodesh Kadashim was here in the west. The Kodesh was here in the east. And then he's saying that in the Kodesh, what did you have? You had the menorah, the Shulchan b'tzafon on the northern part, and the menorah b'darim on the southern part. So again, this is the Kodesh Kadashim. This is the Kodesh. In the northern part of the Kodesh is the Shulchan. In the southern part of the Kodesh is the menorah. Amar Zuk Amar Belazar lo la'achila anitzarech v'lo la'or anitzarech. So that shows us that God doesn't need our food and He doesn't need our light. Why? Rashi explains, if He needed our food and our light, what would He do? He would put the menorah next to the table. Usually when you eat, you need to have light. The fact that He put the table here and the menorah here shows that He's not doing it for Himself, The table is for you. The lechem upon him is for you, to show your love for me. The menorah is for you. The light is for you, to show your love for me. I don't need it, or else I would have had you put the shulchan and menorah next to each other so I could see when I eat. Says the Gemara, Vayas lebayis chalonei shkufim atumim. They made for the Beis Hamikdash wide windows and narrow windows. Tana, and Rashi clearly changes the girsa. Shkufin mibachutz ve'atumim mibafnim. They were wide on the outside, and they were skinny on the inside. Lola ora ani tzarech, to show that I don't need your ore. What does that mean? If you look, basically they used to use this for fortresses. What would they do? They would make a little hole here, and then it would open up like this. That's how it was in the Beis Hamikdash, he says. Which way was it? It was a little hole on the inside, and it got wider on the outside. What do you do that for? You put the little hole where the source of the light is, and then it opens up to give the light to that room. So if it was the small window, and then it was opening up into the mikdash on the inside of the wall, what would you say? The light is coming on the outside, inside, and we need the light inside. Idafka built it the other way, where the menorah was here, there was a small hole in the window, then that light went that way, it opened up from the outside to show that the light of the menorah is meant to go out and not to come in. Fascinating. Says the Gemara, finally we'll end with this, we're going to end with the Mishnah. Says the Gemara, Michutz la-parochas ha'edus be'oel moed. They put it outside of the parochas ha'edus, that's what we just said. They put the menorah right outside of the Kodesh Kadashim, in the Kodesh, on the southern part of the Kodesh. Says the Gemara, Eidusu. It's called ha'edus. L'chol ba'elam shashchina shchar b'Yisrael. The menorah is edus. Says the Gemara, V'im tomar la'or ani tzarech. If you think I need their or, v'alo kol arba'im shana shalach Yisrael b'midbar l'hochu ela la'oro. He doesn't need our or. He gave us light when we were in the desert. The menorah is edus. My edus. So what's the edus of the menorah? Says the Gemara, Amarava zener maravi shenonim b'shemen keneged chavruseha umimena hayamadlik uva hayamisayim. What would happen again? This was the Kodesh Kadashim. This was the Kodesh. The menorah was here. The menorah was facing, according to many, this way. Which means if this was the Kodesh Kadashim, the menorah was facing this way. These are the 7 branches. The middle one is facing that way. The other 6 are all facing the middle. What was the love? What was the edus? What would happen? You would light, the Kohen Gadol would first light the middle one, the Ma'aravi, facing the Kodesh Kadashim. What would then happen? He would then light all of the other ones from the middle one. And yet, in the morning, even though the middle one was lit first, in the morning, what would happen? All the other lights would be out. The middle one would be still lit. That's what it means, that it would be that Bahaya Maschil, he would light that one first, and Bahaya Messiah, that would be the last one. So again, he would light the middle one first, then he would light all the other ones from the middle one. In the morning, all the other ones would be out. The middle one would still be lit, therefore he would change all the other ones and prepare them for the next night. Then the middle one would seemingly go out during the day sometime, even though sometimes it went all the way till the next night, but it would go out during the day. Ubahaya Messiah, then that was the last one that he prepared for the next day. Okay.